Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Peter Jennings, and I go by CSURAM88 across the daily fantasy industry. And I'm excited to be back here at FantasyLabs doing a lineup review for Week 13. Week I hope to forget very soon. Not a good week for me across the board, but happy that Bales took home a seat. And I guess the only good news is I was able to win the three-man with a terrible score against Bales and Levitan. So we always review the Three Donkeys League. I took first with a pitiful 114.86 and was just fortunate to run into some bad teams. I went with Brett Hundley, who I was in love with overall, and just a bad game with interception, only 84 yards. Liked him with the rushing upside, and he did hit that with 66 yards, but overall just bad game flow. They had a defensive touchdown, and this game just kind of flew by. A lot of rushing success for Green Bay. And I was more hopeful that Hundley would be able to have success throwing the football, basically thinking that he was cheap. He'd faced tough defenses in the past, looked really good against Pittsburgh, and was going against Tampa Bay, who had given up the most explosive passing plays of any team in the NFL. So loved Hundley, and that did not work out. This particular team, I went with the three stud running backs, Fournette, Gordon, and Gurley. And there was a lot of value on DraftKings. I did have exposure to guys like Theo Riddick, Drake, Jamal Williams, but for this particular lineup, I decided to go with Fournette, Gordon, and Gurley, and jam in the value receivers and DeAndre Hopkins. So I went with Randall Cobb, stacked him with Hundley. This did not work out well. Played Devontae Adams on FanDuel. DraftKings, I played Randall Cobb. Just a bad passing game overall. I mean, Hundley goes for 84 passing yards. The receiver's obviously going to do poorly. DeAndre Hopkins, who I thought was basically a lock at his price tag given the volume, solid game, didn't get the 100-yard bonus, didn't score a touchdown, but better game than Mike Evans and some other expensive receivers. Seth Roberts, who was the chalk, neither of these guys rolled Seth Roberts, but he was very heavily owned in high stakes, basically because Amari Cooper and Crabtree were out. Julius Thomas, who I was fortunate enough to get a touchdown with. I ran Julius Thomas in my non-Kenyon Drake teams. When I needed to punt at tight end, I was looking at guys like him, Brayton Hooper. Todd Gurley, who I thought was a lock, surprised he was only 33% owned, and then the Ravens D. Bales went with a very contrarian team: Jameis Winston, DJ Foster, Carlos Hyde, Devontae Adams, Mike Evans, Deshaun Jackson, Kyle Rudolph, Mark Ingram, and Jaguars D. He mentioned in our Slack chat that he accidentally put a GPP team in the Three Donkeys, which is what, he's more of a GPP player anyways, so we are going to buy that alibi from Bales. And Levitan ran this as his cash game team after sweeping the board last week. Tough week for Adam, but I like the thought process behind his roster. Brett Hundley, Hyde, Riddick. Riddick was a really nice value play after Amir Abdullah was ruled out. Just a tough matchup, but great price. Hopkins, Sanders, Thielen, who was interesting. Austin Seferian-Jenkins, Leonard Fournette, and Chargers defense. I was on all these plays. Didn't have Thielen much except for my Keenum stacks, but really liked it overall. Emmanuel Sanders let me down in a big way. And I don't mind running it back. Austin Seferian-Jenkins here. I thought he was a pretty sneaky tight end. So good team for Levitan, just not a good result. All right, so the Mega Q. I had to do some big pivoting after things started off badly. I ran a Trevor Siemian stack, you can see here. I had to pivot at running back because of how poorly things started. I went to Kamara, who did have a great game. Christian McCaffrey did not start with Kamara. But went with a full stack here of the passing game and just not come to fruition. I mean, Denver was atrocious on offense. This team was a Keenum stack with Diggs and Rudolph. Rudolph did score a touchdown, but not a big game from Diggs. Had to pivot to Josh Reynolds after the team was dead. Julio, I ran it back with. I didn't like his matchup that much. Hyde, Williams, and Ravens defense. Don't hate the thought process behind the team, but just things didn't work out. And then my Hundley team here with Drake. I pivoted to Kamara as well. I had Evans, Sanders, Rudolph, Keenan Allen, and the Saints defense. So, a team that had potential, but just too many duds there with Hundley and the Mike Evans situation. I did want to review Bales, the winning team here. Shout out to Bales. Awesome win. He went with McCown. That was really the key, that having exposure to that game. Gordon, Riddick, Robbie Anderson, Seth Roberts, Emmanuel Sanders, Kelsey, Gurley, and Rams D. So Rams D was a big one. Gurley obviously had a nice game with 6 catches. Hit on Riddick, and Gordon had an okay game, not a busting game, but was able to cash and qualify with Emmanuel Sanders. So without having great players across the board. Seth Roberts was also let down. A lot of the chalk busted today. Straight cash homies had the best team by far with the McCown-Kelsey team. Jermaine Kearse, Robbie Anderson, so a nice double stack there. Really well thought out team, one of the best players in the game, straight cash homies. Papa Gates and Chipotle took home a bunch of seats with McCown teams. Papa Gates came from behind with a Cam Newton team as well, and just a ridiculous finish for them. So we're going to look more at those teams specifically. We have the luxury box where you can see these guys just crushed it. We'll look at my best team, which was a Phillip Rivers team with Josh Gordon. Had Emmanuel Sanders, who was a really big letdown across the board, one of my strong conviction plays. And Duke Johnson didn't work out here. Played him to run it back. My worst team here was that same kind of Simeon team that I ended up having to pivot with Kamara and McCaffrey, but just an ugly day overall across the board for me in tournaments. Did get a cash here, but not a strong performance. We're going to look through on the contest dashboard just what Chipotle Addict and Papa Gates did, because you can see they had an incredible week. And shout out to them. They are clearly at the top of the NFL game in DFS and have been at the top of the DFS industry for a long time. And they're great guys. I have so much respect for them. They've done some really incredible stuff, including raising a ton of money for charity last year, and really, really sharp. And I know a lot of people are going to hate on them and talk bad things about, how they're crushing GPPs and all this stuff. But I think the most appropriate and the best thing you can do is learn from the best, and that's what we're going to try to do. So Wildcat, you can see here, similar type performance by both of them. I had the same teams basically in the luxury box that I had in the Wildcat. You can see here, same best and worst teams. So what we're going to do now is look at the contest dashboard, and we're going to look at Papa Gates. So we have here the luxury box, and we'll look at where he got the most leverage. Jarvis Landry, Travis Kelce, big time Travis Kelce, 58%. Theo Riddick, Jermaine Kearse, Christian McCaffrey, Tyreek Hill here at a really high percentage. I mean, these are winning plays overall that you can see. They did have a lot of Matthew Stafford, which didn't pan out, another kind of contrarian look. You scroll a little bit farther down, they just really hit on their game stacks with McCown, who they had 16%. That was over the field by 10. But overall, just a really good job. We'll look at his teams for the Wildcat next for Papa Gates. And you can see here a lot of the same leverage. Some different guys a little bit, but Kelce, Riddick, Kearse, a variety of guys. So going through this is a huge tool. You can look through and see what the best players are doing. And these guys are, in my opinion, doing the best job of mass multi-entry, especially in NFL. And that's not a very unique opinion given how well they've done throughout the year and just how many huge smashes they've had. But I really think it's valuable. So if we go back to the luxury box and we look at Chipotle Addict now, you can see his leverage, big time on Theo Riddick, Travis Kelce as well, Michael Thomas, Julio Jones. They had Chipotle had Miami defense really high, which was obviously a really big play. Robbie Anderson, just a lot of really good plays overall that worked out. And they had great correlation on their McCown stacks, which I think is really valuable. I've tried to hit on that a lot this year, making sure you have the right exposure in these game stacks. That really came to fruition in that Jets Kansas City game with Kelce going ham, Tyreek going ham, Robbie Anderson, Kearse, McCown, Alex Smith. Any combination of those guys is going to be a GPP winning combination. So that was his teams in the luxury box. In the Wildcat, you can see similar type of leverage here. Christian McCaffrey, Theo Riddick. There are some busts in here, like Julio Jones, Tennessee defense, but really had a lot of leverage on the key players for this week. So congrats to Chipotle Addict and Papa Gates. I highly recommend going through the NFL contest dashboard. I am reevaluating my game. I need to get better at GPPs. I had a lot of success last year. This year has been more of a struggle for me. And anything in life, you need to evaluate what you're doing in terms of your process and look at what other people who are having success are doing and try to get better. So that's what I'm going to be trying to do. I think there's a lot of valuable information here on the FantasyLabs contest dashboard, and I really hope it's helpful for you guys, as well as what I'm doing reviewing my lineups. I still feel like my process has been pretty good overall. I've run into some bad variants. I've had some really good GPP teams, or more better cash game teams, but have had some good GPP teams. Just overall, I've had a lot of bricks. So I need to work on things and try to continue to get better, playing the game within the game, understanding ownership is a big part of it, and that's something that we're trying to do a good job here at Fantasy Labs, provide you guys good ownership information, and that's something we're going to continue to try to get better at. So hope this was helpful for you guys. It was a tough week, but as always, just trying to always get better and not dwell on the mistakes and feel bad. Use it as motivation to get better and try to learn from other people. So that was a longer review. Hope it was helpful for you guys. Good luck this next week, and as always, looking to see more Fantasy Lab subscribers at the top of the leaderboard.